is the championship game over for Herta and McLaughlin?
I think so. I mean, Dixon for sure. He might not be mathematically eliminated, but this wasn't he might as well have stayed home today with how many points he lost. McLaughlin, I think 88 back, only 13 better than Dixon. I think that's certainly, again, not mathematically eliminated, but I mean, it would take a lot of help from those ahead of him falling out. Not just Palou even, but even I think Power and Colton Herta would need to have some trouble for McLaughlin to be able to make that up entirely. But Colton Herta, 67 back. If we had three road courses coming up, I would say he's still a long shot. But as I said on the pre-race show earlier this afternoon, you talk about Palou not having a win on an oval. Colton Herta still doesn't have a podium on an oval. So, I mean, I'm not saying that I would put it past Colton Herta to finally achieve that and get a podium here in one of these final three races. But I just don't think he's shown as much on the ovals as he has on the road courses throughout his career to make me think that he can make up 67 points on Alex Palou, of all people. With three races to go, I think you can probably say it's championship done for him as well.
Yeah, I don't really have too much to add there. And before I get into mine, so I got a comment here from Adam Limmer saying, you think Alex Palou has one hand on the championship? Well, Adam, I'm actually not going to go as far to say that right now. Maybe we get through the first race at Milwaukee and see what the points gap looks like. And then depending on how well that goes or how poorly it goes maybe I'll be able to, fully agree with you that he has one hand on the championship. But the drivers just mentioned, Herta, McLaughlin, I don't really think that they're going to be a threat for the championship unless Will Power and Alex Palou just have a very bad weekend in Milwaukee. Like you said, Ben, Colton Herta, just like Alex Palou still has a little bit of proven to do on the oval tracks. Palou still needs to go out there and win one. I remember for the longest time we kept saying, when is Joseph Newgarden finally going to win the Indy 500? He's done everything else there is in IndyCar but win Indy 500. Look what he's done in back-to-back years. And I'm sure by now Alex Palou is going to get sick and tired of us in the media talking about his inability to win on an oval track yet. And I'm sure once he finally gets that maiden oval win, that's going to be a weight lift off of his shoulder. And for Colton Herta, like you said, still needs to get up there on the podium at an oval. So that's something he's going to be working to achieve. And looking at Scott McLaughlin as well, 88 points back. Could you imagine where things would be right now if Scott McLaughlin never received that penalty at the beginning of the year in St. Pete? It would have been a lot closer right now. I'm not going to do the math right now, see like where he would be right now, championship wise, if he didn't get disqualified from the season opening race. But I have to imagine, McLaughlin would probably have an outside chance of still winning this championship if it wasn't for that. So real unfortunate situation there. It just shows what happened at the beginning of the year come back to bite McLaughlin at the end. And one of the drivers who was definitely in the championship hunt in Portland, Scott Dixon, still in the prime position for the championship if his Chip Ganassi racing teammate Alex Palou stumbled. However, it really seems like Scott Dixon's title hopes were dashed after the lap one incident took him out of the race. Like you said, Ben, based on what we saw today from Dixon, he probably would have been best, just to stay home because it was lap one, day over for the Iceman as Dixon got knocked off course into the grass by Kyle Kirkwood. Then Pietro Fittipaldi finished him off by knocking Dixon off track hard into the wall. Fittipaldi was the one who received a penalty for avoidable contact. But when Dixon was interviewed by NBC Sports, he said that Kyle Kirkwood is the one who should have been penalized, not Fittipaldi. So Dixon was in disagreement with who was penalized there. So, Ben, after watching the incident yourself, do you agree with Dixon's assessment that Kyle Kirkwood is the one who should have been penalized instead of Pietro Fittipaldi?
It's a tough one because I look at it and I feel like maybe there's an angle that I haven't seen, and obviously Scott has a different perspective driving the car. I think it was David Land who tweeted if Fittipaldi rather gets a penalty for that, then that would be an absolutely terrible call. Obviously, that's what happened there, so you know how he feels about that. I guess what I would say is I didn't necessarily have an issue with Fittipaldi being penalized for his move, but if he was deemed deserving of a penalty, then absolutely Kyle Kirkwood should have been deserving of a penalty as well. And if you could only penalize one driver in this situation, I think Kirkwood was the one who started it. Dixon was just trying to gather it back up. Fittipaldi was admittedly in a difficult position here. You could maybe say the move that he made was a little aggressive for the opening lap, but at the same time, you could also probably argue that he had nowhere else to go with the speed difference that the two cars had there. So I don't know. I think that there's certainly a couple of different layers to this and sides that somebody could take here, but for Fittipaldi to get the penalty and Kirkwood to get away with it with nothing at all, I do have a bit of an issue with that for sure.
And it just goes back to what we've been talking about all year long, Ben, the inconsistency with IndyCar race control. And this was another, case of like why you call a penalty on this driver and why the no call over here on Kyle Kirkwood, still doesn't really make any sense to me. And like you were saying, the way I saw it, I I actually disagree with the penalty on Fittipaldi, so I'm in agreement with Dixon there. Because like, where is Fittipaldi supposed to go with that? Like, I didn't really think in that situation there wasn't anything that Fittipaldi could have done there. He, like you were saying, Ben, he was just carrying, just way too much speed, and he was just in a bad spot with the amount of speed that he was carrying. But you also bring up a good point as well, that probably a little aggressive, to be going like that during that time of the race. And if you were watching NBC broadcast, even even James Hinchcliffe and Townsend Bell, they were in disagreement over the penalty as well. They were arguing back and forth for a little bit before just decided to move on. Just an unfortunate situation for Scott Dixon to have his race ended before even completing a single lap at Portland. And Pietro Fittipaldi, it seemed like he was on track to have a really good day in what's been a difficult year for him. But unfortunately, penalty really put him back throughout the race, and he spent the rest of the race trying to play catch up since it was a relatively clean race.